If that is something that you're interested in, you can find a booth for purchase where the registration booths were set up. But moving right along, we're going to be heading into our next panel for the day, which kind of starts with this idea that kind of here in Silicon Beach or up in Silicon Valley, it becomes very easy to just kind of narrow your focus and think that that's all there is to the world. But technological development, and specifically with blockchain, is happening on a global scale. So where are the next big deals out there in the global setting? Where are the great blockchain innovators? That is what our next panel will be discussing. The moderator for this panel is Bhardwaj, who's the founder of Women Investing in Women Digital, which was launched in 2014. It has 1 million subscribers on Facebook across 120 countries, making it perhaps the largest digital media platform for women in investing with a particular focus on blockchain. With that said, I hope you'll join me in giving her a warm welcome along with the rest of the panelists once we get their chairs set up.
Whoa. I tried to be graceful. Yeah, that's funny. See, it does the same thing. It's like whoopee cushions or something. Great, awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here today in Santa Monica. How many of you are from the area? Raise your hand. Awesome. And how many of you are crypto investors out here? So we have like 10, 20, 30%. Yeah, awesome. Great. So I want to start today by introducing myself and the panel. I'm Bhardwaj, as he mentioned, and have been speaking around the world over the past year to mostly large audiences of women investors in Russia and Australia and Norway, other parts of the United States. And it's been such an amazing journey just this whole past year, looking at all the different funds that are emerging. And I think today we're going to dive a little bit deeper to see what's been working, what kinds of things that our experts here are seeing for 2019. So we're just going to dive in, and I'd like each of them to introduce themselves. And yeah, go ahead. How long have you been investing in crypto?
So, well, hi, my name is Wang. I'm the head of investment and business development for Huobi Ecosystem Fund. The fund is set up, it's a $200 million fund set up to focusing on accelerating the growth and adoption for blockchain technologies. I've been investing for 5 years now.
Great.
I started get involved in crypto in 2011, mining Bitcoins at my dorm room with my roommate. It's an interesting space to be in early.
Hi everyone, I'm Dave Siemer. Started investing, pretty early in my beginning of my career back in '95. Launched a fund called Wavemaker in 2004, traditional early stage VC fund. Started bought Bitcoin for the first time in 12. Didn't do anything with it. Didn't pay much attention. Started to really go deep in kind of 16, and in 2017 launched a new fund called Wavemaker Genesis, which is our first crypto fund. Since then, launched a few other products, index funds, treasury management. We have a trading desk. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christopher Calicutt, Managing Director at Trammell Venture Partners, based in Austin. Our firm is a little unusual in the sense that my old friend and business partner, he was as early as anyone in Bitcoin. So we've been, in one way or another, around blockchain since the beginning. People weren't really calling it blockchain at the time. But now as a firm, for nearly 4 years, and we're not just in blockchain and distributed ledger tech, we're technologists that are now VCs, and we invest in machine intelligence technologies as well as cybersecurity. Dustin's a former cybersecurity researcher. So deep tech is what we do.
Great. And one of the themes that we're working on, we're going to be talking about today, is what are esteemed panelists have been seeing from a global standpoint, what kind of deals that they've been involved in that they would like to share, what kind of structures are actually working. And I'm just going to ask you all to highlight something that you've come across this past year, a very innovative deal structure that you worked on that you might want to share with us.
I guess I run into a very interesting deal. I'm not going to mention the name, but they use all three mechanisms on raising their fund. First is they have an ICO, utility tokens. Second, they have an STO, very small tryout. And lastly, they are primarily focusing on raising funds using equities. And it plays out very chaotic. It's very, I guess the system is very early at this stage to support all three at the same time. But it's a very interesting trial, I'll put it this way.
Sure. I mean, we're mostly an early stage investor, so the equivalent of like a seed stage investor, but in crypto. So most of the deals we do, we're lead investors, typically first dollar in or close to it, and pre-ICO, but in the sense of like 6 to 12 months pre-ICO, not the slightly more discounted round. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the projects we do, we can't, recent ones we can't go into, but we've invested in about 45 crypto projects so far. And yeah, and really like the early stage model of it, and do a lot of what we call signal rounds. So we'll bring a lot of our friends into rounds, and kind of help companies with, kind of this, what moves things in crypto is signal. It's who else is involved in projects like a Huobi or, whoever. And that's been kind of where the market has started and continues to go. I'm wondering how long that'll last.
Any one that's been notable this year that you want to share? Like
any deals we were like
any exceptional ones across the border that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously your favorite deals are usually your children that perform the best.
Yeah.
So we were early equity investors in EOS. That was a good one. We invested in a few of the exchanges pretty early. I mentioned some earlier, but we don't really list them usually in public. And we, in a lot of recent projects on like the security token side, there's a few we're excited about. Like one is here called SharePost, which I think is speaking next.
Cool.
So you hear about that one. We like that one.
Good.
Yeah.
So as a firm, and I probably wasn't clear to begin with, we look at equity deals. So in terms of cryptocurrencies as an investment firm, that's not really exactly what we do. So we didn't. Now that said, kind of on the family office side of what we do, we look at all kinds of alternative asset classes, and we participated Hedera Hashgraph and some of these others. The things that I'm most excited about right now, I can't actually talk about because it's not closed yet. But I'll say this. We are definitely thesis driven. We take kind of a slow capital approach to things that we know in this entire technology stack need to be built. And then we try to find the right team and obviously market opportunity around that. And so we have our own playbook internally that we're looking to address.
Awesome. Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit. Operating funds here. We're talking about funds. In terms of institutional appetite that you're seeing around the world, what's been your take on the landscape internationally? Like, where do you see most of the interest? I know I'm guessing, but what have you seen recently?
LP interest is a really important and timely question. I think for a variety of ways. We've tried to be very purposeful in building a firm for the midterm and the long term. And this phenomenon is obviously global. I think that it's very important that your LP base reflect that global nature. If you have skin in the game in all of the continents and a lot of areas of activity for development around this space, you're naturally going to be better connected. So we've gone far and wide. I've made multiple trips to the GCC region. I've been Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the Emirates.
You're seeing good
Bahrain.
appetite there?
There is appetite. It's still a little bit cautious, but this particular conference I think is super relevant because everyone is starting to learn they're going to have to get down the learning curve in terms of custodial functions and whatnot once a tokenization starts to happen with all the assets that are already investing in. So they know it's coming, and people are educating themselves extensively right now, I'd say.
Okay, one more follow-on. So family offices versus traditional institutional capital, where are you seeing heavier interest? Which side? In the Middle East specifically?
I think that it correlates strongly to the nature of, inversely to the nature of the institution. Probably the most risk averse are going to be the pension funds and
Okay.
down. So right now, I think pretty famously last week there was an article where 5 endowments, including Yale, Harvard, I think it was
MIT.
MIT, and there's one other Ivy League institution that had invested as well, Dartmouth. So I think that's great. They can move a little bit faster than, say, a pension fund and these larger institutions. Families, and that kind of means different things as well. Some families are the assets are relatively less high, and so they might function through an RIA. They're more of a customized, tailored multifamily office. Those are actually registered investment advisors. At a conference I spoke at earlier this week, actually, there was one of the largest RIAs in the United States was speaking there, as well as talking to GPs about putting those asset managers onto their platform. So I would say inversely, it's happening from the families that can move relatively quicker up through RIAs and to the top.
So Will, thank you. You are between Hong Kong and San Francisco, Will. In Asia, where are you seeing institutional appetite more? Korea, Japan, Singapore, China? What's your take?
Well,
Or
first of all,
elsewhere?
I think China banned the ICO or crypto-related investments, right? So we don't see any institution that's investing in China. But the interesting is we see a lot of appetite from institution that's based in China but has offshore entities or family offices that's based in Hong Kong or Singapore, or high net worth individuals have assets outside of mainland China. They are really interested in the concept. Not to mention, I think back in 2017, I think at the very early year of 2017, I think China or Asia in general, is the largest capital inflow into the crypto space.
Correct.
And I think it still continue because people realize there's a lot of Asian country lack of investment assets, good assets to invest in, and a lot of Asian countries, for example, Japan has such a low interest rate. I guess those are the things that attract institutions, attract retail investors to put some of their savings into cryptos.
What about Korea? They went through like a lull and then back up again?
Korea is an interesting market,
Yep.
right? They have 50 million populations, but they are a strong buy power
Yep.
in the crypto space. We see a lot of public listed companies either trying to do their own crypto fund or they are trying to do a JV with existing crypto fund to have their asset allocated in some of the crypto space. That's something we've seen a lot happening this year. It's very interesting.
Great. And David, you're operating in Singapore.
Yeah.
Have been for quite some time. Would you follow on with that? Do you have similar sentiments?
Yeah, well, compared to Korea, Singapore is great. The MIS is very positive. They keep saying things like they've never seen a token they thought was a security, which for this conference is a little less relevant.
Yeah.
For most of crypto is great.
Yep.
And we a lot of our LPs are from Southeast Asia in general, but a lot of them are Singapore. On the crypto side, and yeah, it's the enthusiasm is relatively high. They're still learning. Echoing what you said, we spent a lot of time with institutional investors on the crypto side, and it was completely wasted time so far. Maybe it'll turn around.
In the U.S. or elsewhere?
Everywhere.
Okay, fair enough.
Our traditional venture business has a number of institutional LPs. It's kind of Temasek on down. None of which have any interest in crypto right now, but are very happy to take lots of meetings.
Okay.
And learn and let me
Yeah,
present them for 3 hours at a time. Like, this is what crypto means and why we're excited about it. And then,
For future, maybe.
Yeah, someday it'll turn and all
Yep.
that work may come back for good.
It will.
But right now it's pretty much all high net worth. The university endowments coming over and taking some baby steps in is definitely a big step. But I think we're still pretty far from seeing institutional dollars come in.
Okay. We're going to talk about deal flow now. So incoming deal flow, what types of interesting deals are you guys seeing and originating? Are you seeing more deals coming from Asia or Europe? I mean, there's been a lot of innovation that's happening across the board, and you're all international investors. So where would you say your sexiest deals are coming from?
Probably still China.
Okay.
Well, I think U.S. has some very interesting deals.
And it's something to find interesting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the deals in the U.S. have been chased out of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so some of our better, recent investments, EOS, Everpedia, a whole bunch of others, are LA-based teams that are non-U.S. and block U.S. users,
Right.
And things like that. So the U.S. has done a pretty good job of driving most of the more interesting plays out of the U.S. And the ones that are invested in some security tokens that are reverse ICOs by Asian parlance, we call them corporate ICOs more here. Are big public companies in some cases that are launching, and obviously they're following security token rules, but it's really difficult. They're having a really hard time raising material money, almost to the point that it's almost kind of funny because these are companies that raise hundreds of millions in the real world and are trying to launch security tokens and getting a few handful of millions. So until the exchanges get further and there's the infrastructure for security tokens, I think it's going to be really, I think the U.S. market's going to continue to be relatively dead.
Right. I think as right now in the security token market, we are not really investing in any asset because I think the infrastructure still needs to develop. Right. We need some sort of standards across the board that can make a security token transferable. On a peer-to-peer basis, and we need legal. So we need two types of infrastructure. First is technical infrastructure. The second is what we call regulatory infrastructure. Technical infrastructure means public blockchains or technologies that's able to support high throughput, high privacy that's demanded by the security buyers. For the regulatory infrastructure, we need license exchange, we need custodian, we need standards, we need investment bankers, we need broker dealers on board because
everyone basically.
Basically everyone in the ecosystem to be on board before this actually start growing. Because think about it, even STO is just another form of securities. It's not. You have to find buyers, right? Buyers right now for securities are many institutions, right? For institutions on board, you have to have custodians, sure, right? Those are logical for us, and it takes maybe 18 months for it to get mature, and that will be the and during this time frame, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there that you can invest in infrastructures. And make very interesting investments.
I agree. And I think one of the great things about a conference like this is, I've just gotten to meet Will, and I'm very interested in what's happening in China as well in terms of deals. And I wouldn't be doing my job right if I didn't plug my own hometown. Austin, Texas, and Central Texas as a whole has some fantastic stuff going on, and I think that's probably on everyone's
radar. Austin.
Also regarding deal flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this right now is infrastructure. I think in terms you mentioned investing directly into assets, I think that's something that we definitely want to do at the right time. I think all of those pieces are still being built, and I think it's important to note too, a panelist earlier today said, look, I'm not a real estate specialist, and nothing is going to fundamentally change about the analysis of that asset, and we're probably going to need to do some hand-holding as an industry to make sure that we don't introduce friction into a system that they're just really trying to manage their assets. So I think that's coming as well.
Awesome. So we have about 8 minutes left. I want to talk about the crystal ball for 2019. What do you foresee happening? 2017 was a rush, and 2018 we're seeing some corrections. What do you foresee happening next year, prediction-wise, from your what you're seeing at the end of this year. I'll let you start, David.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you get to go first this time.
Pretty broad question.
Yeah, probably.
So, I mean, I think probably the biggest theme I think people are starting to wake up to is that right now there's been a huge amount of protocol dominance. I mean, and obviously if you were an investor in the last year and all you did was protocols, you did better, even in this down market. And that seems to be getting relatively played out. So there'll be in the next 45 days, there's supposed to be something like 45 live, mainnet live protocols, all of which do 1,000+ transactions a second. And the entire crypto space right now does less than 50 transactions a second. Like every chain combined, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. So if we actually have, and a lot of the chains coming, we've invested in one called like MetaHash, might be one of the faster ones, and like Hashgraph and a bunch of others, are doing 50,000 or 100,000 transactions a second, all to do 50 transactions a second. So when there's 50 of these things all doing this, I'm not really sure what they're going to do. So our thesis for a while has been that people that actually own customers, and like DApp is almost a bad word for a lot of funds, or it was, will be the ones that accrue the most value. I mean, obviously, the easy analog is that like Oracle was a $160 billion database company in 2000. They're still a $160 billion market cap company, but database is almost nothing. It's all CRM and ERP. And I think the same thing's going to happen in crypto. That the whatever. What it is right now is like 24 of the 26 highest valued coins or protocols, and that doesn't make any sense. There isn't much for them to do, quite honestly.
Will?
I think for me in 2019, I think for 2019, I'm anticipating a fair amount of what we're seeing now. We've already kind of seen the reversion to just doing classic Reg D offerings. That plays very well for the security token space as well. People are getting used to that. In terms of overall markets, I wouldn't be surprised if we have another some more downside. I'm okay with that as well. I think this is kind of healthy. I anticipate some fatigue, some additional fatigue around maybe even the word blockchain at some point. But that's okay, because right now there are some really, really smart founders all over the world that are building what's coming next. So I think 2019 is going to be a bit of a transitional year. We know that there will be some, we think there are going to be some ATSs that will come online, and some of what we're talking about will start to move. I think it'll be a really good year. I think I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Will?
Right. So I agree with both their comments. Something I am seeing right now is applications, dApps. I'm still interested in to see how the application is going to really transform the business that's existing, right? I guess one of the application for blockchain is security token offerings. Right? I want to see how that transforms. But until then, I think there's a lot of things that will happen from now to the end of 2019. I think institutional on-ramp solution for institutional on-ramp, stable coins, very, very important as elements in security token offerings. Those two things will have a tremendous growth in 2019. And lastly, we will see more exchanges popping up around the globe. So we will see more diversified investment profiles, people's from different demographics, because we are seeing an increased adoption rate in Brazil, in Argentina, increased adoption rate in Africa. I think those are some of the main battlegrounds right now in crypto space from crypto investment perspective.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you all to comment in a sentence or less. Best blockchain entrepreneur that you've come across so far. We'll start your side, Christopher.
Oh my gosh.
Throw a name out there.
I got to go Satoshi on this one, right?
All right. taken? Next, David.
Yeah, it's a tough question. Obviously, Charles is coming up and speaking a little bit. I do
Okay.
like Cardano a lot.
Okay.
I think you've killed it.
Cool.
Go with that one.
All right. You?
Well, I think Vitalik is incredible, but the person behind him is Bo from Fenbushi, one of the very early pioneer in the market, I'll put it this way. He foresee a lot of things. He's the one that coming out and persuade Vitalik to develop the idea of Ethereum. So I think Bo and Vitalik are two person that I admire the most.
Awesome. Okay, best exchange.
Huobi.
Kraken.
Yeah, it's gonna be-
Any doubts?
I'm asking you. Go ahead.
Kraken.
All right, David. David.
No, I would probably. I mean, I like Huobi. I like Binance, and I don't like most of them because they're mostly really, really hard to use.
You invest in them, but
We invested a bunch, yeah. Some of the decentralized ones. I'll give you a weird one, like Total, plug one of my portfolio companies, TOTLE.
okay.
There you go. It's an aggregator of DEXs with a really beautiful interface and whatnot. So they're doing some cool stuff.
Cool. Okay, this is another one. If you were to start a blockchain company today, which country would you start it in and why?
The United States.
Okay.
My network's here, but also I think there's just a lot of the resources you need. The fear has been around the regulatory environment.
Yep.
But it's okay to do a regulated offering, and I think people are coming to terms with that now. So I think this is a great place.
I think this is a terrible place because security token offerings can't raise money. It's just not really, doesn't seem to be very possible with a very few exceptions.
You pro Singapore still?
Singapore is great. Yeah.
But building a company is not raising capital. That's one function of it.
It is.
And you can raise capital wherever you like, but building it,
But there's a systemic risk in the U.S. that doesn't exist in most of the world. I mean, this is the most oppressive regulatory regime on the planet.
So you have to pick one country, David. Which one?
No, probably Taipei or Taiwan.
Taiwan? Okay. Will?
I'll say Hong Kong.
You'll say Hong Kong.
Yeah, because you see a lot of
Nobody's going for Singapore. Okay, go on.
Hong Kong government is very promoting technology innovations. They have different programs set up for tech entrepreneurs, and it's also the hub that connecting a lot of Western investors, Western corporate with the Eastern entrepreneurial technologies, and those. So that's why I think Hong Kong is very interesting in the next couple of years.
Well, we are out of time. We have 10 seconds left. Can we take questions or no? Are we done? Yes? Question? Okay, awesome. They'll give us a little bit more time. Thank you all. Thank you. Give them a round of applause.
You asked the question, where would you start a company or raise capital? And no one mentioned the Cayman Islands, and so I'm curious if anyone is looking in that market as well.
Or Malta. No one said Malta either.
There's no development talent in Cayman or Malta. There's a great regulatory environment. All of our hedge funds are Cayman-based. So it's a great place to base a fund, and EOS is Cayman-based, and a lot of other, but there's no one in Cayman.
Okay,
their team is in Singapore, Hong Kong, and LA.
So let's reframe the question. If you had to set up a company, which country? Regulatory-wise, you're saying Cayman.
Okay, probably Malta.
Malta?
Probably the most advantageous right now.
I'm sticking to my guns. USA.
Okay, good luck. You?
Singapore or Luxembourg.
Singapore or Luxembourg. Okay, so we've got 3 contenders.
In light of Chairman Cox's talk this morning, would you agree that the United States is going to stay tied up in huge knots for a very, very, very long time, and accordingly there will be a significant lack of clarity?
I don't think there's that much lack of clarity, honestly. I think it's pretty clear. If you follow every security law, you're okay. What everyone's waiting for is them to issue, to issue new ICO token-friendly laws, which is never going to happen in my mind. Like never ever is that going to happen. We have a security law regime at the SEC. If you follow it, you're fine. If you don't follow it, you're dead in the U.S. The challenges are the infrastructure is not there. That if you do follow it, you can be that successful. You can't raise money easily. You can't be liquid. You can't move those tokens around the world very easily because no one else wants to follow the US regulatory regime. But it's not a lack of clarity. The clarity, I think, is perfect. Everyone should know exactly what they should do. Reg D offering or whatever it is, and follow the rules and suffer through the challenges of the earliness of the space.
So I agree. It's a tough environment, but with the clarity and the other options, once they start approving A and A plus offerings, that'll help to a degree. But I would also add color to say that at the state level, some interesting things are happening here that that might be a different game changer. I think you should pay attention to what happens in Texas in the state legislature next year, because there's some proposals on the table that might make Texas a more attractive place in general.
Well,
Final comment. And then
yeah,
I
final
think
comment.
they're
US is the biggest market, right? So if it's a big share, it needs more momentum for it to turn. So, and I don't think US will be the test ground for STO. I think potentially they want to see some other jurisdiction to prove them that the STO can create more liquidity, is beneficial for the financial market before they make a final decision. Just my own personal opinion. But once they see that happening, US will be the largest market for STO.
Great. So anyone can come up to us later. Thank you all so much, and thank you Start Engine for having us.